video, we're going to talk about how to use IRAC on your law school exams. So before we dive into what IRAC stands for and breaking down each of those components, I first want to remind you that taking a law school exam is going to be very different than the other types of exams that you've probably taken before. Again, I don't know what your undergrad degree's in or what type of experience you have, but what I do know, generally speaking, is that law school exams are just different, and it's going to be unlike any other exam you've taken before. So learning how to use IRAC properly, and of course breaking down these parts so that you know what each part's purpose is going to help you excel on your law school exams. So now that we have that behind us, what does IRAC even stand for? That stands for Issue, Rule, Analysis, Conclusion, or IRAC, IRAC. Each of these pieces, the issue, the rule, the analysis, the conclusion, have a very important role that they play in helping you dissect your law school essay questions. Please remember that oftentimes, at least on a traditional law school exam, you're going to be faced with many, many different issues that you're supposed to be dissecting and evaluating. And again, using IRAC is going to help you stay organized. It's a very formulaic approach, and it's a great way to illustrate to your professors that you have outlined all of the applicable issues, you've provided the correct rule, and you've analyzed and you've concluded on it. So let's talk about that issue a little bit more specifically, or the I of IRAC. So one of the tasks of a traditional law school exam is for you to read through a lengthy fact pattern and to identify all of the legal issues that are present in that hypothetical pattern. So the first thing that you want to do to make sure that you're handling the I of IRAC properly is to identify all of the legal issues that you possibly can. And again, there's usually multiple. The R of IRAC is your rule. So for each and every single one of those issues that you've identified, you want to provide the rule for that issue. Keep in mind that if you're taking like an open book exam, this is usually when your professor literally allows your textbook or your casebook, as well as outlines. This means your rule statement needs to be as accurate as it possibly can. So this is why having the rule memorized is helpful, or being able to quickly find it in your materials is necessary so that you can give it back to them as perfectly as you can. If it's a closed book exam, this is again why memorization is really important, because you won't have your materials to look off of. The A of IRAC stands for analysis. And honestly, this is the meat and the potatoes of your answer. This is where most of your points are going to come from. In other words, this is when you can really show off your understanding of these principles being tested to your professor. So when it comes to your analysis, it's important to be as thorough as you possibly can in identifying and addressing all of the different arguments that all of the possible sides could raise to your issues. And then you want to evaluate those arguments that you've outlined. It's true that on a law school exam, most of the points are allocated to the analysis section because, again, it's the meat and potatoes portion, so to speak. So for every single issue and rule that you identify, you want to analyze those facts present, set forth the arguments that all of the parties could make, and of course, evaluate those arguments. And then finally, getting to the C, or the conclusion of IRAC. Once you've identified all of the parties' arguments as it relates to that issue, it's also really important that you reach a conclusion and identify what the likely outcome is going to be. Even if the argument could go either way, which is very common on a traditional law school exam, you still want to get in the habit of picking a side or reaching a conclusion. This is a skill that your professor is oftentimes looking for. Even if the answer you pick is not super important, they want to know that you can reason to a conclusion. So that's what your C stands for. Conclude on the issue or pick a side, and it's always best that you provide an answer or explanation for why that is your conclusion. So we hope you found this video helpful to get a better understanding of how to use IRAC, the issue, rule, analysis, conclusion format for all of your law school exams.